be tricked or thought of or anything like that as any sort of, oh, well, maybe this could be what it looks like next year. Maybe this will be with the chemistry when the guy's coming back and with a full training camp. I think we're beyond that. We got to look at the entire body of work and not just this one game against a really terrible Jets team, and just continue to just look forward for the Patriots instead of saying, oh, Cam, threw for 3 touchdowns. He caught another one, 4 total TDs. Look at how good he can be in this offense. No, this is fool's gold at best.
Okay, and just recapping some of our YouTube audience just clicking in here. Patriots win, not necessarily what people were hoping would happen because of a draft result that you're hoping they could have maybe snuck in a little bit higher than what they were going to be if they won. And now we know what we know, which is the Patriots have beaten the Jets, finished 7-9. They are very likely to end up in the 14th or 15th slot of the NFL draft. Likely puts them out of the top quarterback conversation, makes it harder to trade into the top 10, but not impossible, but just kind of that's where they're at. So this is what the Patriots
this is what you were worried about, right? Was this purgatory? Was Bill Belichick is good enough, Cam Newton is good enough to get this team to 7-9? That we kind of knew that this is where it was headed all along with this marriage.
Well, people were saying 8-8,
right. And that was the fear, was that, okay, yeah, maybe they could be a little bit frisky, and they did make it interesting there with the win against Baltimore and Arizona and the Chargers, and you thought, okay, maybe this team has something going for it. But at the end of the day, they were always a mediocre team, always a mediocre roster. I was going to finish somewhere around 500, pick 15th in the draft, and be sort of nowhere. You're not in the running for one of the top quarterbacks now. You're probably going to miss out on the premier talents of this draft. The Kyle Pittses, the Micah Parsons. Maybe you could start talking about a Devontae Smith. I think Jamar Chase is out of the question too. So where are you really picking at 15th or 14th? Where are you really going with that pick now? I think is an interesting conversation. And I wouldn't maybe Bill Belichick would take it off the table, but trading up from this spot should not be off the table for the Patriots fall in love with one of these quarterback prospects.
And that's the thing. You don't know if they do or they don't. We've seen it again. You never know what to believe or not believe when it comes to the NFL draft and the Patriots. But there are some times where they do the things you wouldn't expect them to do based off of their history. For example, Baker Mayfield and the conversations that transpired prior to that draft, the Patriots were ready to throw the kitchen sink at that situation. By all accounts, after the fact, it just didn't happen. He went where he went. Had he fallen 4-3, the Patriots were getting a father offer to try to get up and get. They could be in a position like that again, which could be future firsts, first and a second, if in fact they see a guy that they think this is the guy. So do not put it past them. It is not beyond the realm of possibility. However, right now you're looking at an almost certainty that quarterbacks go at 1 and 2, and you don't have any idea beyond that what it's going to take to even jump up to get the third quarterback. You might have to get all the way up to, now we could be talking about up to 4, which might be a reach, unless of course you're convinced that no, that's the guy I wanted all along, and it could be, to use a Celtics kind of analogy here, there could be the Jason Tatum there that they think is actually the best quarterback in the draft and isn't going to be taken 1 or 2, who they think they can get at 4, 5, or 6. And maybe that's a situation where you move, but I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a wild offseason with that in mind.
Yeah, this is definitely where the fear was that, like I said, Belichick was good enough to coach this team, as depleted as they are in different areas of the team. The opt-outs, Cam Newton's first year in the system, Cam's struggles, all those things. He was still good enough to get this team to 7 wins, which is a great thing because you have the head coach still in the building next year, and he's the guy leading the rebuild. And if you can get this team to 7-9, you give him some more talent again, and all of a sudden, we can turn this around quickly. That's the positive outlook of it. The negative outlook is because the Patriots wanted to remain competitive, wanted to play for the playoffs when they were still in the postseason hunt, and then obviously weren't going to be able to stink as badly as the Jets stunk today. Here we are. And now we have to pick 14th, 15th, and have these conversations about sort of being in that middle ground of, do you trade up? Do you just let somebody fall to you? Where do you exactly take it from here? I think is going to be a very interesting question. But ultimately, 11 draft picks, 11 draft picks, 60 million in cap space. They got plenty of assets.
Okay. Well, Evan Lazar is going to catch his breath here.
Yes,
and if you have to pop out here and get a drink of water,
I'm okay. I'll
filibuster for a little bit. We can talk about, the need for the quarterback is obviously going to be even greater with the news today, and nothing that was too shocking, but we talked about it in our pregame show. The report that Patriots are expected to part ways with Cam Newton after this season. This was obviously something that didn't quite fit. You gave the analogy before the game of the girl you have nothing in common with, but it seemed superficially like this would have been a good match. It ended up not being. Then Cam goes out and has one of his better games as a Patriot today with 242 yards passing and the 3 touchdowns. Caught one, 3 passing touchdowns. Nobody had that in the pool, right?
Nobody had that in the pool, and not to take anything away from Cam Newton, but 2 of those touchdowns really all 3 of them were busted coverages, or just the Jets kind of having no interest in covering anybody, especially the Sony Michel one. But Devin Asiasi looked like they kind of busted that coverage a little bit too. And then the first one, James White, they just kind of let him wide open underneath the defense for that little ankle route for the touchdown. So not exactly the most difficult touchdown passes that Cam Newton has ever thrown, but it was fun to see on some level. And I don't want to get too caught up in this, but in some level, it's been a really difficult season for Cam. He's been extremely critical of himself. So to see him be able to go out like that and at least enjoy himself and actually put the team on his back once again, that good for him, right? Not doesn't mean anything about the future, doesn't change anything about the Patriots' plans beyond this season, but at least good for Cam to have that moment here at Gillette to finish it off like that on the right foot, where it went so wrong for so many games. It was good to see it end on the right foot. At the same time, it doesn't change anything. And I think the analogy that I used in the pregame is really the perfect one, right? Because the first couple of weeks of the season, training camp, we were legitimate after the Seattle game. We were legitimately having Cam Newton contract extension conversations. We did a video on our YouTube channel following the Seattle game of whether or not the Patriots and Cam Newton should reach a contract extension before the market got too pricey to re-sign Cam Newton for 2021. That was what we were talking about then. Then adversity hit. Then the real world hit. The real world came into play, and you realized, wow, this quarterback has deficiencies. His skills are diminishing. He's not a great fit for this offense anyways in terms of his skills as a passer, and it's just not really working. So eventually the time showed that this is not exactly the best match, and I think the Patriots are still going to feel that same way.
Yeah, I think, but there isn't a person out here who was rooting for it to work out. In many ways, Cam Newton was a cool, departure from the Tom Brady era because it was a different style of quarterback. You might get to see something you hadn't seen for all of these years. Obviously, everyone talked about the personality, and that actually was a big thing. It sounds like media fluff that you get charmed by somebody and then you write these puff pieces because he's nice to you and you're not being critical enough. I think people were pretty critical of Cam Newton's play, but yeah. I actually think the value he had on his teammates, keeping everybody together in a really down year, is actually understated, not overstated, because this could have gotten away from them fast with lack of Tom Brady present, lack of the veteran leadership that's normally there all the time. And you still had some of it, but obviously you were missing some as well with the COVID opt-outs. This could have gone south a lot faster. I actually think Cam helped hold it together, helped kind of lift up some of the younger kids when they were struggling, helped keep a positive outlook on things, and was a net positive on the season. If you just look at it in terms of what would the worst case scenario have been, not saying worst case scenario / best case scenario is difficult to, everyone has their own interpretation. Some people wanted to see a tankathon sort of season, but this was, I think, about as good as it was going to get with this team.
Right, and I also think that we could look at this a couple of years down the road when Jacoby Myers has an 1,000-yard season, or Devin Asiasi starts to blossom like he did today, and we could say, okay, it didn't work out with Cam. It was a 7-9 season. It's kind of that mediocre season that you want to avoid. But at the same time, the development of some of the young players, not all of the young players, N'Keal Harry hasn't really developed the way that they would hope, even with Cam. But in reality, a lot of these younger players, like a Jacoby, like a Devin Asiasi, I think ultimately benefited a whole lot from having Cam's positive energy and having Cam's leadership, and sort of looking at it more from a big brother instead of a parent-child standpoint. It was really like Cam was their big brother. And I think that is something that they are going to take moving forward, whether Cam is here or not. So that's all well and good. No one's making excuses for his play for most of the season. His inconsistencies as a passer have just really kind of manifested themselves in a lot of ways in this scheme, in this system, that if they're going to want to continue with Cam, which it sounds like they don't anyways, but if they were to continue with Cam, then I think that they would really need to alter the entire passing scheme and the way that they throw the football. Because if you're going to, be predicated on timing and accuracy and precision passing and efficiency in the short part of the field, this quarterback is not the answer for you. So if you want that guy, those guys are available, whether it's in the free agency or veteran market or in the draft, and we're going to talk all about them for the next 6 months or whatever it's going to be, but it's not going to be Cam Newton.
Yeah, and it's, as you said, it was good that Cam could go out with a relatively positive effort today in what is likely his last game, even if it cost the Patriots a couple of slots here in their draft positioning. N'Keal Harry was active, correct?
He was active, and it's interesting because it feels like the couple of times a game where he does get open, the ball just doesn't find him for some reason. But then when he does, then he just doesn't, kind of reflect it in the box score, because he gets open maybe 2 or 3 times a game. Last game too, I was really critical of his performance, but even still, there was 1 or 2 times where he was open, he did flash open, and the ball just didn't make it there for whatever reason. So there's just been an entire disconnect of his in total development from start to bottom, right? Just the fact that he is not an elite separator, not a great route runner. His feet are still too slow. He's still, kind of drifting and not getting in and out of his breaks with any sort of urgency. He doesn't run fast enough in the straight line down the field to be a vertical threat. And then when they do have those blips of, he flashed open here, he flashed open there, the quarterback isn't finding him, and the ball is not finding him. So it's just been an abject disaster with N'Keal Harry all for 2 years really going now, of not being able to find those moments where he does get open, or the scheme helps him get open, or wherever the case may be, and you're not able to kind of combine those with production.
Yeah. And it's, it is a shame. Some of the things you talked about, seeing down the stretch, was actually a bit of a shame what was. Looked like played it. Really all the way to the end of the season.
You there, John? You were cutting out pretty bad there for a second, so I couldn't hear what you said. Can you repeat it? John, you there? I think we're losing John, unfortunately, but we'll get him back.
Evan, do I still have you?
Yeah, I think you got me now. Can you hear me? Sorry about that, guys. John's just going to pop out, and I'll just continue rolling here. I see all your comments that you can't hear him either. So we'll just keep going. He's going to pop out and pop back in, and hopefully we'll get him back here on the feed. I think the biggest thing about this game for the Patriots moving forward is really just looking at the landscape of the quarterback position and finding the best investment is going to be a really tricky thing. I don't know where they turn here. It's question of, do they want to go with the veteran player versus the young player? Personally, I would like to see them go both routes and get a veteran player in here and then combine that with a draft pick as well. But I think that's the biggest thing that we need to look at moving forward for the Patriots is not just investing in one quarterback or a veteran or a rookie in the draft, but actually investing in multiple QBs until you find that guy. I'm always a big believer of going after multiple quarterbacks year after year after year until you finally hit one, because oftentimes it takes teams a long time to be able to find that guy. So whether it's just a rookie and a veteran bridge, or a rookie and a guy like a Jimmy Garoppolo who maybe has a little bit more upside to be a long-term starter. I think that all of those things are on the table for the Patriots. If they're going to go the bridge route, I see a lot of you guys saying Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't know if I see that marriage necessarily here. I think Fitzpatrick is in a position now where his value has been pretty clear. And I think that he's going to end up making a little bit more money than maybe people are expecting once he gets into free agency, especially the way that he looked with Miami for spurts when he was the starter, certainly in the early part of the season, and then coming in for Tua. I know struggled again today, I believe, based off of the score, at least there in Buffalo, which was pretty shocking. But I think that the biggest thing moving forward for this Patriot team has always been surrounding the quarterback with as much talent as possible. Look, we can talk about every single quarterback option under the sun. If they roll these same people out there next year as they have the past 2 seasons, you're going to have the same results. So I think that that's going to be the biggest thing for the Patriots, is upgrading this passing attack is going to be number one important thing I'm going to stress all offseason long, is that there is really no excuse at this point in time to me to continue to roll out what the Patriots have rolled out in the passing game over the last 2 seasons. We're going to try to get John back in here in a second. If you got some questions in the feed, drop them in the feed. I'll answer them as we wait for him to get back in here. So the Patriots, once again, 28-14 over the Jets. It definitely was a little bit disappointing to see them win this game, but the Jets really didn't give them any chance to lose this game with the way that they played. So it's going to be an interesting offseason, to say the least. Let's answer some of these questions. A second-round tender for J.C. Jackson. I would say that there's a good chance that Patriots put a first-round tender on J.C. Jackson, to be honest with you, because I think that they're going to be in a position where they know that they're going to lose Cam Newton either this year, or Stephon Gilmore, either this offseason or next offseason. I really feel like J.C. Jackson's a guy that they are going to prioritize pretty highly, and I would say that a second-round tender at the minimum would be what they would place on J.C. They might even pace that rare first-round tender on him as well. So a couple of more of these questions here, scrolling in quickly now. I can't scroll back, so we're going to have to just continue to move forward in that. I like this one question. Shazy Boy 50, what's up? I know you're a often listener. You have Corey Davis as a solid choice for the Patriots. Absolutely. I think Corey Davis is a solid choice for the Patriots. I like him. I like the idea of Sammy Watkins here in New England as well. Somebody that is going to play the X receiver position and actually be a threat on the outside is what this team needs. I don't think that this team needs another inside receiver. I think Jacoby Myers is going to be that. I think they're going to add tight ends. I think they're going to get guys to attack the middle of the field. What they really need is a guy on the outside that can win along the sideline, that can win down the field. I think somebody like Corey Davis, Tim Patrick, someone like Sammy Watkins would interest me. Will Fuller, maybe, but not so much interest there for me with his injury history. I think those are some guys that I would take an eye on for certainly. Do I see them taking a CB in the first round if Gilmore isn't here? I actually do. I think this is one that Patriots fans are not going to like, but I think there is definitely a possibility that the Patriots trade Gilmore and use a high pick on a cornerback to replace him. If it's Patrick Surtain from Alabama, that's one thing. It's the rest of the CB